What's going on, everybody? It's your fishing buddy back with another video for y'all. And today I want to talk to y'all about a good all around, all season bait. But specifically right now in the fall to winter transition, I am catching the fire out of these fish right now. You hear me? And with no further ado, ladies and gentlemen, fishermen, pescadores, boys and girls of all ages, I present to you, le presento, the blade bait. And just as the name suggests, it's a blade. It's a piece of metal constructed into the shape of a bait fish, shad, minnow, bluegill, things of that nature. It's got a nice shiny paint job on it these days. Or you can also have one that comes in a nice reflective silver color. These baits are a whole lot like lipless crankbaits or rattle traps in the way that they flutter in the water when you work them. The difference is these are a whole lot heavier normally for the size. They're a whole lot heavier than a crankbait, a lipless crankbait or a rattle trap would be. They don't make any noise, but what's special about this bait is, what makes it work is, when you find those schools of those balls of bait fish swimming on top of the water, you see them, and normally, you know, when you see bait, you see bass. So what I like to do is I like to throw this out far as I can, cover a whole lot of water, and I like to let it sink all the way down to the bottom. And once it gets to the bottom, I like to work it back up. And when I work it, when I pull it up, when I'm pulling this up, what's happening is it flutters back and forth. It's kind of like that, but it flutters back and forth and it gives off a lot of vibration in the water. And then once I get it to the top, I reel down on my slack and I let it fall back down to the bottom. Not all the way back down to the bottom, but I let it fall back down and I keep doing it. And what that's doing is giving off the impression to the fish lurking at the bottom. Normally the big ones are lurking at the bottom. That it's a dying bait fish that is falling down from the bait ball at the top. And now it's just an easy target for those opportunist type bass that are lurking down at the bottom. It's pretty much irresistible to them. This is a good bait to throw in any depth of water, pretty much. As long as you got a clear bottom. Like if you got lay downs and you got a bunch of stuff you can get snagged up on, or a lot of grass, a lot of muck in the water, these treble hooks, it's going to grab on all of that. So this probably wouldn't be my choice for those type of situations. But yeah, I wouldn't throw this out in those type of situations. But in shallow water where there's like an open bottom, like gravel or big boulder rocks or sand, even anything that's free of like lay downs, sticks, limbs, things that can get caught up on these treble hooks, this is a good bait to use. All predator fish are looking for bait fish, so you really can't go wrong. Right now, I've been fishing this bait out in 20 to 40 feet of water. And like I said, I'm casting it out. I'm letting it go all the way down to the bottom. Once it hits the bottom, you want to watch that line on the way down. And if you see a strange tick or your line just takes off all of a sudden, you want to be able to set that hook. It's 2 times that the fish are going to hit this bait. It's on the way down and it's on the way up. So on your way up, I like to catch it at the top, kind of like burning rubber. That's what I be thinking in my mind. When I bring it all the way up, I start to burn rubber before I stop, and I start to catch up with that slack. And what I'm doing, I'm feeling for a tick or a thump. You know, I'm feeling for that hit so I can go ahead and set that hook. You don't want that fish to hit and you don't let your line come all the way down and put all of this slack in your line, and then you go to set the hook and you just pulling slack. So you want to keep that in mind. And that's anytime you fishing a bait and you putting slack back in your line, be mindful. But I like to watch my line when I can. If I'm fishing a bait and I'm putting slack in my line, I like to watch my line, as well as feeling for the hit, you know, using my senses, the senses that I can. I like to watch and I like to feel for those hits. But a lot of times you might not feel that hit on the way down. So watch your line and watch for those ticks. The line I'm using 10-pound braid to a 12-pound mono leader. Okay? 10-pound braid to a 12-pound mono leader. And I'm tying that up with a double uni knot. I was using an FG knot for all my connecting knots. I still use them when I'm fishing for catfish, but that's because I'm using thicker diameter line, both braid and the mono. So it seems to be able to grip better into the mono, and that's what you want in the FG knot. But we're not talking about that right now. FG knot is what I'm tying. If you're not sure how to tie FG knot, at the end of this video, I'll give you an example on how to tie FG knot, and you'll be good to go. The rod that I'm using, that I'm fishing, actually, sometimes I go out and I take 2 rods and fish them. And I'll fish one on a fast action rod, and I'll fish the other one on a moderate action rod. My preference is the moderate action. You don't need a whole lot of backbone when you're fishing with braid. Braid has no stretch. Maybe a little bit, but it has no stretch. I like to stick to the school of thought. If you have thin wire hooks, use thin line and a thin rod. That's how I like it. It's a whole lot more fun that way too. Catching those fish, rod bending down, the fight is a whole lot better. But if you're fishing like a tournament or something like that, and you just want to get those fish in the boat as quick as possible, then a fast action rod might be better for you. You don't need a whole lot of when you're going to set the hook, when you're fishing with braid and when you're fishing with treble hooks. You can pretty much reel into the fish and guide that fish back, and that hook is pretty much going to get set in most cases. I have lost a couple because the fish were running back at me when I'm trying to reel down. That's where a faster gear ratio comes into play when you're fishing a technique where you're putting slack in your line so you can catch up to that slack quicker and set that hook. There's more scenarios where you use a faster action reel, but right now I'm using a 6.4 to 1 gear ratio, so nothing really too fast, not really slow, not really fast, just right there in the middle. And I'm not really having too many problems with it, but the rod that I'm using, both rods are 7 feet. I would like for the rods to be a little bit longer, and that's only because I feel like it would be a little bit more fun fishing the bait and reeling the fish in. But that don't really matter. At least a 7-foot rod, and you should be good to go with that. So I've shown you these two. The colors that I find work best for me are a green or a chartreuse. And as far as green and chartreuse goes, that's just about with anything. That's just about with any bait you pick out. Like, all the different shades of green are pretty much gonna work wherever you're fishing at, especially in darker water where the visibility is a whole lot lower. It's definitely gonna work there for you. This one here is a chartreuse orange. I catch a lot of fish on this one here. This one is actually a Gander Mountain. Look at me lying. This one right here is actually a Cabela's brand, orange and chartreuse blade bait. You can pick those up, Bass Pro Shop, or yeah, that's probably about it. That's where I got this one, actually, for the Cabela's brand. This one here is actually one that I picked up on Amazon, and that's where I got these cool little boxes from. It's a whole lot cheaper. I think I got 5 of these for the price that I could have got 2 of these for, or something like that. Something along those lines. I have a lot of luck on this one as well. What I like about this one is it's got this tail on the back of it. So that's kind of going to slow down the action a little bit whenever you need to. If they're not just super active, or maybe like during the summertime or the winter time where they're kind of like lethargic during the summer and just kind of not feeling like moving so much during the winter time. This right here will slow down the action. It'll be a different retrieve like during the winter time. During the winter time, you can slow this bait down and work it more towards the bottom. Like, don't swim it so much through the water column. Just work it more on the bottom. When you bring it up, let it fall more back down to the bottom. Any other time, I would work it through the water column, like let it hit the bottom and then reel it up. And before it goes back down to the bottom, never let it drop all the way back down to the bottom. Like keep working it up. Another color that I like is this chartreuse and white. And I really like this shad color right here. I had a bigger one of these that I had a lot of luck on, but you know how it goes with treble hooks. I lost it. The shad color right here is a really good color right here. Shad, I think that the shad color works good in any water condition. Meaning if the water is light, if the water is clear, if the water is dark, anything in between. I just feel like the shad color is an all-around good color to use on pretty much any bait. Even if the body of water that you fishing don't have shad in it, I still feel like it's a good color to use. So you can keep it pretty simple. I only had 2 colors to choose from. You know what? I don't know. This one definitely, maybe this one. Because I really like the subtleness of like the chartreuse on this one. I really like the subtleness of it. But this is the one that I've been tearing them up with though. So that's why I said this one first. Because this is the one I've been tearing them up with. Out of all of them, this one. I say this. You can't go wrong with the shad dot right here, made by Cabela. You can't go wrong with that one. You can't go wrong with this shad dot made by Cabela's. You can't go wrong with this chartreuse orange. It's got the orange belly on it. You're not going to go wrong with this one here. I ain't going to lie to you. I haven't caught any fish on it yet, but stay tuned. I bet you I will. I bet you I will. If I don't, you can unsubscribe. How about that? Like and subscribe for me. That'll greatly help me out. So the one thing that I really want you to remember about these blade baits, color aside, size aside, where you fish it aside, is the flutter. Like when you fishing this bait, set your mind to I'm a dying bait fish. Okay? Like become the bait. That's what I like to do. Become the bait. Think about what this bait is doing in the water. On the retrieve and it's fluttering, think of an injured or a dying bait fish on its last limb. And it's fluttering up. And it's like, that's all I got. And then it falls down and it's like, I'm trying. And it falls and it's fluttering. And some short flutters and some long flutters. And some, like, make it mimic a irresistible injured bait fish. I guarantee you, if you mimic an injured bait fish, you are gonna get bit on this bait. If you don't get bit on this bait, the fish just aren't biting that day. And that's just how it is sometimes. Sometimes you go out and you fish this bait, you might take a chartreuse out one day, right? And you get out there and you catch your limit, you catch your mama's limit, you know what I mean? Like you catch everybody's limit and just pulling fish out of the water, hand over fist, right? And then the next day you go out, same spot, fish the same bait, same technique, and you don't get a single bite. It's like that sometimes. Change it up. Fish a different color. You know, you might go, and it's the same thing with like the technique and how fast you're fishing it. You gotta switch it up sometimes. You might go out and do everything the same, you know, and you don't get bit, you switch it up. You might go out and you fish the same technique and you switch the color because you're not getting bit on that. Well, guess what? Switch up the technique, speed it up, slow it down, fish it on the bottom, more on the bottom. You might be in 40 feet of water and you might count it down and it might take you 30 seconds for it to hit the bottom, or 20 seconds or 40 seconds, however long it takes to hit the bottom. Well, instead of counting it down to 40 feet and letting it hit the bottom, count it down to 15 feet. Count it down to 20 feet. Start working as soon as it hits the water, you know, especially on like overcast days. Find them, like figure out where they are in the water column. If you're not on a boat and you don't have, you know, the technology and everything, like find them. Don't just say like they're not in here or they're not biting. Find them. You can find them. Spend a little time thinking, becoming the bait, feeling that bait, fishing it on that 10-pound braid, fishing it on those lighter action rods. You're going to be able to feel everything that this bait is doing. All right, so feel it and just find those fish. All right, and as promised, I'm going to teach you real quick how to tie a double uni knot. Now, I will say, I do like the FG knot better. I like how thin it is. I like how it casts through the guides on my fishing rod. But you're not going to have a problem with this knot right here. So, I guess I should say I like this knot better, this double uni knot, because I've never had a problem with it. Like, I've never had one of these knots slip. So what you want to do is you're going to have your main line, which is braid, coming out of your fishing rod from this side, right? So we got our braid. And then we're going to have our leader, the leader that 7 to 10 feet a leader, just dangling free. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our braid, right, coming from this side, and we're going to take our leader material coming from this side, right, and we're going to overlap them. So our braid is going this way and our leader material is going this way, right? So this is what we have now. They're overlapped. And go ahead and pull you out a good bit to work with so you don't get confused, okay? So then you're going to grab them right here in the middle, and that's what we have, right? So now we're going to take the tag end that's on this side, which is our leader material, and we're going to pinch both of those lines together, and we're going to make a loop, okay? We made us a loop, right? So now that we got a loop and this braid and this leader material are right here together. Can y'all see that? We got our braid and we got our leader material, and it's right here with the loop. We're going to take this leader material tag in and we're going to wrap it around the loop, including the braided line. And we're going to do that 5-6 times. Okay. I'm not going to do it 5 or 6 times with these lines because they're too thick. But just imagine I'm wrapping this 5 or 6 times. So 1 around the loop and around the braided line. 2, right? And then we're going to keep going all the way to 8, right? Keep going. But I'm just going to do 2 for the purpose of demonstrating. Now we're going to moisten the loop. We're going to lubricate this knot before we cinch it down, because if you don't, then your line is going to get hot. It's going to rub up against each other. The friction is going to fray. It's going to get weak. You don't want that. It'll slide a whole lot easier, and you can have a whole lot more confidence in any knot you tie if you lubricate it. Water, sweat, saliva, whatever else. Okay. Lubricate that, cinch it down. Cinch it down tight. I'm not going to cinch it too tight because then this knot won't slide. Okay. Just for demonstration purposes. So then I'm going to turn this around. So the other side looks the exact same, except now for our tag end, we have our main line, which is the braid, the 10-pound test line braid. Okay. We're going to make us a loop. And now we're going to pinch that down. So we're pinching our leader material, which is the 12-pound mono. We're pinching our braid, and we're pinching the tag end of the loop, which is also the braid, right? So then we're going to take that and we're going to wrap the braid more times than we wrap the mono or the fluorocarbon if you're using fluorocarbon. We're going to wrap it more because the braid is smaller diameter, much smaller. It's like sewing thread. If you never fished with braid, if you have, then you know. So we're going to wrap it more times just so we can make our knot a little bit bigger and we can have confidence in that knot. Okay, so we wrap that other one 5 or 6 times. We're going to wrap this one about 8 times. Okay, same thing. Over the leader line, the mono or fluorocarbon, and over the top of that loop, the top of the loop, which is the braid. And we're going to do that 8 times. So 7, 8 for demonstration purposes, right? And we're going to moisten that knot the same way, right? You see that? We're going to moisten that the same way. Boom, boom, boom. However we're doing. And we're going to pull it tight. Okay? Then you're going to grab your main line, which is that braid, and you're going to grab that dangling leader line, right? And we're going to, before we do that, we need to moisten it again before we cinch it down, right? Before we cinch it down, we need to moisten it again. And we just pull it. We just pull it tight. And now you have a double uni knot, and it's not going anywhere. Okay, I just take I normally use fingernail clippers because they're in my pocket. I keep them on my keychain. My fingernails are always dirty and stuff like that. So like I'll just take the fingernail clippers and I'll just cut it pretty close. I'm paranoid, so I don't cut my knots like right at the knot. I just cut it really close like that. This twine line ain't gonna cut good, but and I do the same thing on the other side. Y'all probably like, why he got all these manicure tools and stuff like that? Man, believe it or not, I'm a cosmetologist by trade. Anywho, there's that, the FG knot. You ain't gonna have no problems out of this knot. It's gonna be a whole lot smaller than what you see right here. It's gonna be a whole lot smaller than that. You're gonna be able to have confidence in this knot. If anything breaks, it's probably gonna be your 12-pound mono, honestly. So I hope I've done a good job explaining to you how to use this bait and how to get out there and catch pretty much all the species of bass. You might even have you a crappie on. You might even catch you a crappie every once in a while. Hopefully you'll pick one up and get out there soon, and get on some of these fish while they fattening up for the winter time, and bring them on into the bank, bring them on into the boat. So that's it for today's video. It's been a long day for me. I've been cutting hair all day. I got clients waiting for this video, and I told you I was on the way, so here it is. As always, I appreciate you being here fishing with Sid. I love you for it. And until next time, good luck out there on the lake.